Hello and welcome to the One Medicine podcast from today's practitioner. In each episode, we share the expertise of a respected thought leader. Some you'll know and others you'll probably meet for the first time. We cover topics important to you, always with a focus on improving the health outcomes of the patients you treat while expanding your understanding of the many healing modalities being used today. Welcome to the One Medicine podcast. I'm Rob Lutz, your host and the editorial director of today's practitioner. Today, we're joined by Dr. Jacob Teitelbaum, and we'll be discussing diabetes and metabolic syndrome, metabolic health in general, and how to address these challenges with your patients. Dr. T was my first guest, so it's a real pleasure to have you on the show with us again. Welcome back to the podcast, Dr. T. Before we get started, can you just share a little bit about your background for those? I don't think there are probably too many people out there who don't know you, but just a little bit about your background, and then we'll dive into the topic.
Well, thank you, Rob. It's great to be with you all again today. By way of background, I've been an MD for about 50 years now. You know, people ask, what's a nice Jewish doctor like you doing in holistic medicine? I got into it the way so many of you did. I came down with a disease that modern medicine had no clue what to do. I had post-viral chronic fatigue syndrome back in 1975, knocked me out of medical school, left me homeless. And of course, when they couldn't figure out why this problem persisted, they said, oh, must be a depressed med student, all that kind of stuff. So my focus has been on the metabolic syndromes, on how to optimize energy as one facet, how to address pain relief, effective treatment for CFS and fibromyalgia. I would note, if it's okay, Rob, that for those of you interested, let me give you my email address. So if you have questions on stuff we talk about today, my personal email is fatigue, F-A-T-I-G-U-E, doc, D-O-C, at gmail.com. Feel free to email me for long COVID, fibromyalgia, neuropathy, pain information sheets, and even information sheets on the diabetes and metabolic syndrome we'll talk about today. I know we cover a lot of territory, and this way it's just these are all three.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that your contact information is in the show notes. So if someone wasn't able to write it down quick enough, it will definitely be in the show notes for them to link right back to your email. Great. So how common is diabetes and metabolic syndrome? Why is this an issue?
It's important to know the historic context. Right now, we're looking at 1/3 of Americans having diabetes and prediabetes, and that's extending down to even into children, which is mind-boggling. Since we only live 100 years or less, we think, well, it's always been this way, but it hasn't. Wonderful research done by medical anthropologists out of Harvard showed that diabetes was, at least adult diabetes, was exceedingly rare until the Western diet was introduced.
Mm-hmm.
This is a disease of Western civilization, along with so many others, which means it is optional.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So you mentioned it's really not something that's hasn't been as common until recently, the last 100 years or so. Is that primarily related to lifestyle, dietary? What's the difference? What caused it, would you say?
Number one, the American diet, that's the standard American diet, SAD, good acronym for it. We're getting about 140 pounds of sugar per person added to the diet and food processing each year. That's 18% of calories. Another 18% from white flour. Meanwhile, fiber levels in the diet have decreased considerably, so sugar absorption spikes during the day.
Mm-hmm.
All of this triggers insulin resistance. We're also seeing the diet being highly inflammatory, especially with these ultra-processed foods, which a recent study, a meta-analysis of almost 250,000 people, showed that ultra-processed foods are responsible for over 120,000 U.S. deaths a year. It's the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. Low exercise, obesity, and the inflammation drives obesity. The advice to avoid sunshine. There's so many different things that trigger metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance, but every one of the things that I mentioned are all treatable.
Mm-hmm. So changing your lifestyle, changing your diet would be a start. Maybe if we could back up before we get into your recommendations on what we could do for patients, what are some of the things that happen to someone that as they start to eat more poorly and their blood sugar starts to rise, insulin resistance, what are some things that they might start to see over a period of time, some symptoms that they might experience, would you say?
Well, initially, what they're going to see is weight gain. They may
Hmm.
start to have some fatigue also with it. They may see their cholesterol start to go up. Their blood pressure may start to go up. These are all symptoms of the same insulin resistance
Hmm.
problem.
Hmm.
But when they're starting to get that spare tire around the waist, it's time for them to start looking.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, the symptoms are going to get are mostly late.
I
The
mostly what? I'm sorry.
later after the
Yeah.
disease has been wreaking its destruction. For example,
Hmm.
high blood pressure is called the silent killer,
Hmm.
and insulin resistance is the main cause of high blood pressure. We'll talk about some other things today too. High blood pressure has very little to do with salt intake. Let me take a moment just to give a 30 seconds on high blood pressure.
Sure.
If you take salt intake from the highest amount you can eat to the lowest amount you can tolerate, you'll drop blood pressure readings on the order of 1 to 3 millimeter.
Hmm.
It's really pretty negligible. In whites, it's 1 millimeter, and blacks, it's 3 millimeters.
Hmm.
And it's just not sustainable for people. It is not salt excess. Salt is a small player. That's a myth that's persisted. Main thing is potassium deficiency. Hypertension, in addition to insulin resistance, is low potassium intake. You won't see it on the blood test
Hmm.
because it's intracellular where you don't see it.
Hmm.
So drink some tomato juice, some V8 juice, eat an avocado or banana each day. Simple things to raise potassium, along with what we'll talk about today, will lower blood pressure far more effectively.
I kind of relate something to myself. Going to turn 60 soon. I did a podcast with Dr. Mark Houston last year, and we talked about cardiometabolic health. And I felt I was a pretty healthy guy. I ride my bike a fair amount. I eat pretty healthy, not a big drinker. My blood work has always been pretty good. And he suggested I do a little bit more advanced blood work. So my blood pressure is slightly high. My LP little a, which I'd never really knew much about until the podcast, is very high. It's at 230. My cholesterol slightly high, but not terrible. Just all these things are just slightly above where the ideal number is, according to, mainstream medicine, I suppose. Even my glucose is a little bit high. And so I'm thinking I must be kind of on that road with some metabolic dysfunction, possibly, but with all those things happening. So I find this interesting, and it makes me think there are probably a lot of patients out there that are somewhere on this continuum and they're not quite there. So what could they be doing to correct this? But really, I'd like to know, what can we recommend for patients that are insulin resistant, having serious metabolic health, or even have diabetes? I think that's where I'd really like to go with this. So, what are some of the key lifestyle issues that can reverse this? You talked about it's optional, diabetes is optional. Tell me a little bit more about what you're thinking there.
Number one, diet. This does not mean giving up everything you enjoy. Rob, we have this Puritan point of view in this country, which is horrible. We talk about in old England, if you're a robber or a hooker or whatever, they sent you to Australia.
Hmm.
And if you're a Puritan who said, pleasurable devil, damn you, they put you on a boat and sent you to America.
Hmm.
And I think Australians are much more fun, really has to be. We have this concept that anything that feels good is bad for you, which is utterly insane. Things that feel
Right.
good are usually good for you, unless the food processors have messed with them. So, for the diet, keep most of the things you enjoy, but cut out the sugar.
Hmm.
Stevia is I have a sweet tooth. One of my
So
books
do
is
I.
a complete guide to beating sugar addiction. I like my sweetness, and I will get my sugar-free chocolate, and I use stevia. My morning coffee tastes like an ice cream sundae with no
Hmm.
sugar in it.
Hmm.
So you can have your pleasure in ways that are healthy. Cut out excess sugar instead of the fruit juices. Where if you have 16-ounce orange juice, that's 12 spoons of sugar. Eat an orange or two instead.
Hmm.
Just common sense. Number two, just like the lectures I used to give every year, I'd lecture to the third graders on nutrition back when I lived on Chesapeake Bay. And the basic thing is look at the ingredients. If you can't read it, don't eat it. So if it looks on it, it says corn, eggs, and those are the ingredients, and you can read them, and they're like basic whole foods,
Hmm.
good. But if you're getting to a bunch of hydroxylated butter and it looks like this chemical soup, if you can't read it, don't eat it. Put it back on the shelf. As I mentioned, the recent meta-analysis showed that eating these ultra-processed foods cause more deaths than diabetes and Alzheimer's. So
That's
this is
incredible. Yeah.
It is. And it's being addressed. So common sense in diet. You like butter? I love butter. I think some people say the secret of life is butter. I mean, it's, these foods,
Butter or bacon. Yeah.
butter, bacon,
Yeah.
eggs. Eggs are healthy. Eggs are
Hmm.
healthy food.
Hmm.
So have a pleasurable diet, but cut out the stuff that's just not recognizable as food when you look at
Hmm.
the ingredients.
So eat more
Number
for
two,
nutrition, not so much just for recreation, but at times enjoy yourself.
no,
And yeah.
I know, eat for fun and the joy of it,
Hmm.
but look at what you put in your mouth and make sure it's actually food and
Hmm.
not junk. Well,
Yeah.
number two, the advice to avoid sunshine is insane. We are going to look back. And I used to tease, Mom took me to a museum of natural history when I was about 5, and they had the skull with a hole cut in it, and it said, the ancient Aztecs would cut holes in the skulls to let out evil spirits for sick people. I tagged my mom's dress. I said, Mommy, were they crazy? And she looked at me and said, yes. And I can see in 100 years we'll have a museum of old medical history, and they're going to show the doctors saying, smoke Pall Mall cigarettes as part
Hmm.
of the advertisements, and don't breastfeed, it's barbaric. And another doctor will say, avoid sunshine. And the little boys will be tugging on their mommy's dress, saying, Mommy, were they crazy? And the mommy will be going, yes, dear. So sunshine is healthy. Low sunshine
Hmm.
contributes to excess inflammation and low vitamin D and is a major risk factor for diabetes. So
Low
avoid,
vitamin D is a
right,
risk factor. Yeah.
yeah, which is,
Okay.
and sunshine's the vitamin D
Yeah.
vitamin. So avoid sunburn, not sunshine.
Hmm.
Go for walks outside in the exercise. Meanwhile, keep your weight at a reasonable level.
Hmm.
And when you have a high protein, low carb diet, it's easier to not gain weight. For those of you who do hormone replacement therapy, low testosterone in men or high testosterone in women both cause insulin resistance. So, as the testosterone level, and again, I'm preaching to the choir here, the medical definition of low on a blood test is usually 2 standard deviations, or that means you have to be in the lowest 2% of the population.
Hmm.
And normal shoe sizes, and this is an example I give patients, people who treat so they can understand. A normal range for shoe sizes is size 5 to 13. So if I come in with my size 12 foot in a size 6 shoe, the doctor will say it's normal.
Hmm.
That's
Uncomfortable but normal. Yeah. Right.
yeah, insane. An income of $8,100 a year in poverty, but medically normal. So for testosterone, if the level is under 500 on the
Hmm.
blood level, I will consider bioidentical testosterone or other measures naturally that people may want to do to raise testosterone. But the low testosterone in men, you see as men go through menopause,
Hmm.
they'll start to develop metabolic syndrome. That's a symptom of low testosterone.
And when does that usually happen, would you say? What's kind of the range?
55-ish.
Hmm. And what kind of symptoms would a patient or doctor see someone who comes in? How are they presenting where they're going to say, I think.
Tired, low motivation, maybe a bit depressed,
Mhm.
putting on a spare tire around their abdomen, difficulty with sexual function, loss of libido, low
Hmm.
testosterone.
Okay. Yeah.
In women, it will present as polycystic ovarian syndrome when they have high testosterone, and
Hmm.
that's what drives the insulin resistance, drives PCOS.
Hmm.
That's a whole nother topic.
So as a practitioner and you have a male patient come in who's, let's say, 56 years old, has some of those symptoms, do you test their testosterone, or what's the level where you're saying to yourself, I need to do something for this patient? I need to
If it's
supplement.
if it's under 500 and they have symptoms, because some people a size 6 shoe is normal.
Right.
Some people a 350 level on the testosterone is normal.
Hmm.
But if they're having these other symptoms suggesting that it's not adequate for the body,
Hmm.
in the younger male, I will use a medicine called clomiphene to stimulate their own, or I will just use a bioidentical testosterone.
Hmm.
The pellets are preferred over the cream, and the cream is much preferred over the injections or the oral. I don't recommend those other two forms. Cream is good, pellets are better.
So back just a little bit to insulin resistance. What's the mechanism that's causing that? You talked about diet, but you just talk to me a little bit about what is actually kind of happening behind the scenes.
Many things are driving it. One of the key things is that the constant excess presentation of sugar to the cells. Sugar is like gasoline for a car,
Hmm.
and the cells are like the motor, and you have a certain amount that gets, you have furnaces in the cells that burn sugar for energy. And insulin is the key that opens the furnace door. So the sugar goes in, gets burned for energy, and that works very well when you're having steady low levels of sugar.
Hmm.
But what happens when sugar levels go too high? It starts to gum up the furnace, and the furnace will say, "Well, do not accept delivery of the sugar." It becomes deaf to the insulin. Says, no, you're not opening the furnace door and letting more of that junk in here.
Hmm.
So it does it to the point that the cells are starving for energy because, and the body then drives up insulin, becomes a vicious cycle. What are some of the things that drive that insulin resistance and high sugar? Well, the 140 pounds of sugar per person per year. Increase inflammation. Inflammation drives insulin resistance by many mechanisms. It does so in the muscles, it does so in the fat cells. It's a major kind of an issue. So, cutting down inflammation, which is really easy naturally, we'll talk about that as we talk about the treatment, makes a big difference for so many things in our health. And then lack of exercise. The burning of the sugar tends to help maintain the control so it doesn't just build up in the
Hmm.
bloodstream. And again, vitamin D is critical.
Hmm. With all this sugar that's not, it just gets converted to fat. Is that what's happening?
Well, insulin is kind of like the traffic cop.
Hmm.
When the insulin is working, it takes your sugar, it takes your calories, directs it into the mitochondrial furnaces to be burned for energy. And then you eat and you get energy. You don't
Hmm.
get fat. But what happens when the furnaces say, return to sender? They're not accepting it.
Hmm.
Then the traffic cop, the insulin, has to send all that sugar into fat. Got to do something with it.
Hmm.
And that's why you start gaining the weight.
That makes sense. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about, I know you have a protocol that you've used with success for patients. You want to talk a little bit about what's in that protocol and how you came up with it, or, what's the results that you've seen?
I came up with it because I'm a science geek. I read the medical literature for fun. I know that the universe loves me because the most beautiful girl in the world, at least to me, had a thing for science geeks instead of
Hmm.
people who do sports and all the other stuff. So, yeah, I will read dozens of studies a day, not
Hmm.
uncommonly, and I know how to tear them apart. Because with most research, if I look at the study and I look at the conclusion, that tells me who paid for the study.
Hmm.
You have to tear the data apart to see what actually is happening in the study.
Hmm.
So let me start with a quick explanation. Most of you are familiar with this, some may not be. In measuring blood sugar for diabetes and screening, the most helpful test, I think, is called a glycosylated hemoglobin. It has many names, hemoglobin A1C, but the glycosylated hemoglobin is a key. It averages the sugar over a period of time, so you get
Hmm.
an idea of what's happening over time. Most people are around 5.4. If I checked the two of us, we would probably be 5.4, maybe 5.5. And anything over 6.5 is diabetes. Anything over 8.5 is poorly controlled diabetes. And they kind of go from there.
Hmm.
So most of the people coming in to see you, if they have somebody else who's diagnosed with diabetes, they'll have that glycosylated hemoglobin number. So you'll see what there are. Using a mix of four natural compounds, the research shows that over 1 year, these four compounds will decrease that number by 2.7. So if I have somebody who's at poorly controlled at 8.8%, keep them on these four really easy things. After 1 year, they'll be down under 6.5%, which means they're non-diabetic
Hmm.
at that point. All of these play well with medication, metformin. Everybody has their own point of view with it. My point of view is that metformin is a perfect good medication. Main problem is it will cause vitamin B12 deficiency, even with normal tests.
Hmm.
And then people develop nerve pain, and the doctor will say, well, that's just a diabetic neuropathy. No, it may be, but it's also often from B12 deficiency from the metformin. So if they're coming in, I don't try to get them off of metformin. I do put them on a multivitamin or on something that has B12, at least 100 micrograms of vitamin
Okay.
B12. So that's just as a little aside. But here's
Hmm.
the recipe. So if you have a piece of paper and a pen, write it down, or you can email me for it. First thing I do is I use an herb called Hintonia latiflora. That's available in the United States as Sucomtrel D in the practitioner lines, Sucontral capital D. It's one twice a day. It starts working in 3 to 4 months. It continues increasing in effectiveness over a year. At the 1 year mark, it decreased the glycosylated hemoglobin an average of about 0.9% or 1%, basically, which is quite dramatic.
Hmm.
Very safe, very well tolerated. Two excellent mechanisms of action. It has a polyphenolic called cutragenin that increases insulin sensitivity directly, and it slows sugar absorption in the gut. So it works very nicely. Many, many studies on it.
But it takes a few months to really see some
It
benefit.
takes 3 months to lower it about 0.3%. About 11 months, it decreases at the 1.0%, which
Hmm.
is massive.
But does it have any other positive impacts besides the blood sugar? Or
Well, most things that improve insulin sensitivity
Mhm.
help the whole metabolic syndrome process,
Got it. Yeah.
which is high blood pressure, high cholesterol. But what it's been studied for is diabetes. And the
Hmm.
head of the Diabetes Association, the International Diabetes Association, came out saying that he recommends it on all his patients with diabetes. It's just really, really good.
Hmm.
But if you're talking about side benefits, because here's the thing in medicine, we talk about pharmaceuticals, and unless you're taking pharmaceutical advertising, then you're talking about the side effects. If you're taking pharmaceutical advertising side effects, what? Anyway, that's another topic that I won't
Hmm.
get to that pram today. But nice thing about natural remedies is side benefits. So let's take a look at the second piece of that four-part thing for lowering blood sugar, berberine. Berberine is a wonderful herb. And in addition to lowering blood sugar, also after 1 year on the order of 1% for the glycosylated hemoglobin, it lowers cholesterol, lowers high blood pressure because it's helping insulin sensitivity. If you're taking the regular berberine, then you're looking at about 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Can cause upset stomach, and that's a problem. But the compliance with 3 times a day is a little iffy sometimes. But what it does do is it kills harmful bacteria and other organisms in the gut. So if I were traveling to India, for example, and I needed to take something to keep from getting Parista, I'm going to take the berberine. And if I have all kinds of dysbiotic issues, I'm going to take the berberine. So in somebody who has dysbiotic issues, including candida or fungal overgrowth, which you can't tell on the test, there's plenty of tests that wouldn't critical for any of them. But if they're having gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, nasal congestion, sinusitis, that's candida. No testing needed. The berberine can help that,
And
along with a good
remi
probiotic.
you mentioned the amount they should be taking per day for this. What can you say that
So
again?
in the studies, using regular berberine is 500 milligrams 3 times a day. But
Okay.
again, people get stomach upset sometimes with that. If you're looking for the diabetes, you don't need to be killing the gut stuff. There's a very high absorption one that has something called gamma-zorb or gamma-cyclodextrin. It's a natural compound
Hmm.
that this is, as a clinician, it's really important to be aware of this compound because it dramatically cuts down the dosing and cost. We did one study using red ginseng energy for people with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, long COVID, and their increased energy and average is 60%. But we used two, one that had the gamma sorb in it, and it decreased the dose needed by 75%. I mean, so
Wow.
if you want to make compliance easier, there is it's called berberine ultra absorption. It's made by Euromedica. 250 milligrams twice a day is plenty.
Okay.
And that just makes it really easy for
So
people.
is it a different delivery system or a different form? What's the difference?
Gamma-zorb is a molecule that's kind of like a bucket and grabs these kind of components, and it's both lipophilic and hydrophilic. It basically has a part that can pass through water and a part that passes through oil.
Hmm.
So if it hits a door, because most things are one or the other, and if it's water soluble and it hits a lipid, it stops.
Hmm.
Well, this one just turns around and goes back in the other way. So it dramatically enhances absorption, totally natural, totally safe and benign. It's
Hmm.
wonderful.
And so
And
you don't have to take as much.
it's nowhere near as much.
Yeah.
It's not expensive, it's
Yeah.
safe, and it cuts. I don't like people taking handfuls of pills all day. It
Right.
cuts pill count down dramatically.
Yeah.
So, like say for the reducing energy, which increased energy 60% in our study, half a tablet a day was equal to 2 capsules using the gamma absorb form. And that's
Wow.
what I take myself if I need some energy.
Yeah.
Once if I'm on a show and so it's the berberine ultra absorption, 250 milligrams twice a day. The next thing would be CuraPro, which is a high absorption curcumin. Curcumin is wonderful. And as I mentioned, being a science geek, the number of studies I've gone through is a lot. And for about 20 years, there are all these studies on curcumin and turmeric. And it was, oh my God, this is amazing. But when you look at the dosing needed, unless you're in India eating a curry diet, there's just no way you could get these 16,000 milligrams a day and stuff. It just was not doable.
Hmm.
Then somebody discovered that if you take the turmeric oil called turmeric, add it back in to the curcumin, you increase the absorption almost 700%, sevenfold.
Wow.
Suddenly, all this thousand studies became usable.
Yeah.
That was one of those,
Make it
ta-da,
happen.
the angels open. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God. So we talked about how inflammation drives metabolic syndrome. And the American diet is really very, very inflammatory. Sugar, white flour, loss of omega-3s, grass-fed beef, decreased vitamin D from sunshine avoidance, all these things. We have inflammation on overdrive in this country. One of the simplest, most powerful natural ways to bring down inflammation is with a high dose, high absorption curcumin. I feel healthy as a horse, but I take the Cure Pro, 750 milligrams a day, the high absorption curcumin, and I just can't justify not taking it. The anti-cancer preventing effects, the anti-pain effects, probably decreases Alzheimer's and dementia risk, decreases metabolic syndrome. It
Yeah.
brings down the glycosylated hemoglobin after probably quicker than a year, 0.4%. So, you're looking at Sucantrol D will bring it down 1%, berberine ultra would bring it down 1%, 0.4% for the CuraPro one each morning. And the CuraPro, that's just like a side benefit. There's
Hmm.
all these other benefits. And then melatonin for sleep. I will take a 10 milligram sustained release melatonin,
Hmm.
and that brings it down another 0.4% in
And
the
is it the
study.
melatonin that's reducing it, or your improved sleep that's having that impact? Yeah.
The studies just show in repeated studies that the blood sugar goes down in diabetics who
Hmm.
take it. And it
So,
says 0.38%, 0.4%. You
so these different products that we're talking about, you mentioned each one has a certain percentage of impact on your blood sugar. Do they work together synergistically? Is there,
beautifully.
yeah, okay. Can you talk a little bit? And I find that really interesting because a lot of times you'd think, oh, if it brought down 1% here and 1% there, is it going to really add all those up together? Or is it going to do
Yes.
something more? Or is it going to do less?
They're synergistic because the
Yeah.
mechanisms vary. So when you have something working through the same mechanism, you're less likely to get additive synergy.
Hmm.
When you're coming from different mechanisms,
Makes
then you'll
sense.
tend to see that be additive. And I'm going to add that all four of these, and again, I may just start with just do Control D or the berberine. That may be all they need.
Hmm.
I'm not anxious to get them off the metformin. The Sucantrol D has the vitamin B12 in it
Hmm.
as one more thing that kind of takes care of that problem. Because as I mentioned, metformin will cause B12 deficiency,
Hmm.
regardless of the test results. And the Sucantrol D takes care of that as well. But if you want them off the metformin, again, metformin decreases the glycosylated hemoglobin 1 to 2%, depending on
Hmm.
the dose you're using.
Hmm.
So any one or two of these can replace the metformin.
Hmm.
But for me, I have no problem combining all of these together.
And then eventually you'll be able to get the patient off of the drug and maybe would this be something that this patient need to take forever at this point?
Yep.
Or
Till
is
they
it once you
till
get it
they
to where,
correct their lifestyle.
yeah, yeah. So these different products will help bring down those levels. Important thing is for them to make these changes in their lifestyle, but then at some point they maintain those lifestyle changes and they don't have to continue to take these different things. That's
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
ultimate goal. Yeah.
Well, no, the ultimate goal is to control the blood sugar and have them have a great life. If they can't lose weight and they can't make the changes, then at least they can take these things and that'll give their body what they need to adapt
Hmm.
to them
Hmm.
and to thrive despite those issues. I always prefer a healthy diet, common sense.
Hmm.
And again, I will rant against people who say healthy diet means giving up everything you enjoy. I just digress a moment. Can you imagine a universe where there was some god or goddess or creator or evolution, any of these creating a system where things that are enjoyable are bad for you? What? Why?
Right.
Evolution is going to say things that feel good help you survive. A benevolent parental or other kind of god or nature or goddess or whatever, unless he was an evil mother, making, hey, everything good for you is bad. It's like,
Hmm.
I don't want to be involved with that system. I mean, no, things that feel good are usually good for you until the food processors get hold of them
Right.
or other industry
Yeah.
and try to addict you.
They figured out what your body influence your body so that you're eating more of this food, and they formulate and develop those foods in that way to turn on and turn off whatever, so that you're tempted to continue to eat the stuff that isn't good for you. Even though it feels good, you enjoy it, probably feel like crap after you eat a lot of it, but that's the difference. Yeah.
Yes. So again, all of this things you've been taught about, if it's good to you, it's bad. And please stop
Right.
doing that to the people you treat. It's really unhealthy. Life is meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to feel good.
Agreed. So anything else around metabolic health and diabetes? Yeah, because I
So
would also like to talk a little bit about hypertension, because I think there's that connection you mentioned before, but I don't want to skip to that until I feel like, is there anything
I
else
think
you want to share?
I think this, the lifestyle, the 4-part thing, just letting people give it a year to see the full effect.
Hmm.
And I think what we talked about, most diabetes will go away. It's can be effectively treated. It's
Hmm.
not rocket science, and the research is good research that's not behind it.
Hmm.
People ask about the GLP-1s, the semaglutide type medications. My experience in 50 years in medicine is, except for the metformin, every diabetes medicine that comes out, while it's under patent, the media is going, the horns of and the angels in heaven are coming out. And I look at the research that's hidden and nobody discusses. There's all these toxicities and side effects. And then as soon as the patent runs out on the new medicine, then the media is free to talk about all the toxicity.
Right.
So they can bury the old medicine that's now cheap and make space for the new wonder patentable one.
Hmm.
And wash, rinse, repeat. This is just kind of the ongoing cycle.
Yeah.
So tend to be tend to be skeptical of semaglutide. And having said that, I think it's a good medication. It's just
Hmm.
obscenely and absurdly expensive,
Right.
but it is available through the compounding pharmacies at
Mhm.
a much more reasonable price. But so for that one, I prefer what I've talked about here. A lot of people need to lose a lot of weight. It's
It works.
so far, yeah.
Yeah. And then hopefully they can get their weight down, and then, not fall into that trap where I'll just keep taking this drug and keep my lifestyle the way that it was. Right. I think
Again,
that's the temptation in this society these days. I want to take a pill, want the easy way out, and aren't willing to make some of those changes.
and again, when we're talking to the person in front of you, let them know pleasure is good. And I know I'm repeating myself.
Mm.
I'm not looking for you to give up your pleasure. I'm looking to guide you how to get even more pleasure, but in a way that's healthy.
Hmm. Makes sense.
Good. So we move to high blood pressure,
Yeah,
and we can
yeah,
talk about cholesterol if you like also.
yeah. I would love that. So, okay, so we've talked about, metabolic syndrome that is likely causing some of these other cardiovascular challenges. How is that happening, and then how do you approach that?
Okay, so the metabolic syndrome is the mix of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, weight gain around the abdomen, and the prediabetes or diabetes. All of that comes from insulin resistance. So
Mhm.
these are all wisps of smoke from the same fire. Doctors will treat them like they're unrelated conditions, which is absurd. For the high blood pressure, again, first of all, they keep trying to make them, and we talk about normal range as 2 standard deviations. and the 95% of the middle is defined as normal. So size of 5 or 6 to 13 is normal. But when you have an expensive medication, suddenly the normal range disappears. Nobody's normal.
Hmm. Right.
Everybody should get statins and give it to your pets, your hubcaps, and it's crazy. So you have to be a little skeptical of the testing. We're seeing the same thing with blood pressure, where certainly treating blood pressure is critical. The medications are well worth it to keep the blood pressure under 160 over 90. But the attempt is to try to drive it to 120 over 80 or less, or 120
Hmm.
over 70 or less. That's often unhealthy, especially if people who are over 65 and they start getting falls and hip fractures and they start getting TIAs and strokes because of decreased cognitive function. That's all ignored because, oh, it's good, damn it. No, healthy is good, optimal is good. And what that is varies from person to person. So, number one, 140 over 80, I'm a happy camper.
Okay. 140 over 80. Good enough,
Yeah,
right?
good enough is plenty good enough for most people. There are
Hmm.
times where there's exceptions, but anyway, but that's plenty good enough. As I mentioned earlier, the salt is a very small player. What the studies show is that salt has a negligible effect, salt restriction, but salt substitutes have a strong effect on decreasing mortality. Why? Because salt substitutes are potassium.
Interesting.
It's a potassium supplement.
So
So,
are a lot of people deficient in potassium?
yes, American
Why,
diet
why,
is,
why is that?
because American diet doesn't have it, and you can't really supplement it. Our government, and God bless them and their wisdom, made it illegal to put reasonable amounts or even helpful amounts of potassium in a supplement. Well, what if somebody with kidney failure takes it? Thank you. So everybody else will be deficient.
Right. Way
God
to go.
bless.
Yeah.
But again, 500 if, as a very rough measure, 100 milligrams is like 1 milliequivalent. For those who are using milliequivalents, 10 to 20 milliequivalents a day is a really good supplementation level. So you're looking at a good MIT. So 1 inch of banana would be about 1 milliequivalent.
Hmm.
Um, 500 milligrams of potassium in 8 ounces of V8 or tomato juice. Half an avocado will have that much.
Hmm.
So if you have a taste, see which ones you have a taste for and start to include those in your diet.
Again, all sorts of other side benefits from doing that.
Yes.
Eating a healthy whole food diet.
Healthy whole food diet, tasty whole food diet.
Hmm.
But again, it doesn't have to be, can't, I'll go out and have my pizza. And you see me at Costco. My wife calls me a Costcoholic. She's right. And if you ever see a picture of me holding a Diet Coke and one of those big hot dogs, hi, I'm
Yeah.
Jacob and I'm a Costcoholic.
Yeah.
Most of the food I eat is going to be really healthy, but it doesn't mean we can't occasionally.
Exactly. Enjoy yourself. Do something fun. It's
Yeah,
not going to kill you.
yeah. It's
Right.
it's a matter of degree, not
Hmm.
absolutes.
Hmm. Someone that's presenting with hypertension, what are your recommendations for that patient?
When I will have exercise, go for walks in the sunshine. I will start them on the blood pressure medications. I will,
Hmm.
if they want, they can take the berberine, and the berberine ultra absorption is very good for that. There are other things I'm looking at, and in 2 months I'll have more data
Hmm.
about some other things that may be very effective. But I will go with the ACE inhibitors, things along those lines. The medications are not bad for high blood pressure,
Hmm.
and I'm not quick to get people off them. What I find is that if somebody has a very high blood pressure, it works much better to give them the medication, get their blood pressure down.
Hmm.
And there's a nice one called Cardiotone, which is basically reserpine and herbal. I don't know I forget the company that makes that one. That if you're looking for a natural option,
Hmm.
but I do these. I will give them medications. I will bring their blood pressure down. I will keep the pressure down for 2 months. I will do the lifestyle changes, and then they can wean the medication. Most things I'm going to go the other way around. Diabetes, I'm going to start on lifestyle and then go to medications.
Hmm.
Blood pressure is self-sustaining. Blood pressure starts to go too high, it becomes a vicious cycle where it keeps itself high.
Hmm.
Easier to lower it, do lifestyle, wean the medication.
And so if a patient was like 150 over 80, are you going to medicate for
No,
that? Or
no, no.
at what point do you think it's time to start considering medication?
165 over 95,
Hmm.
I'm going to start medication.
Hmm.
160 over 90, I'm going to give them lifestyle for 3 months.
Hmm.
If it's
And then
still high, then I'm going to go with my
then come
patient.
back. Yeah. Okay. Anything else about hypertension that you want to share?
Those are the main things. Again, one of the one of many benefits, you're protecting the blood vessels, you're also protecting the brain.
Hmm.
The research is showing that the blood pressure control helps decrease dementia risk, but there's so much you can do to prevent dementia. Most dementia, I think, is preventable.
Hmm.
And that's a whole nother show if you ever want to do
Yeah.
that. But I'm going to just let the viewers know if you email me at fatiguedoc@gmail.com, ask for the Alzheimer or dementia prevention information sheet. I'll throw that in there.
It's great.
Again, if you have people with long COVID or fibromyalgia, ask for that information sheet, mast cell activation syndrome, POTS, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Great. We also talked a little bit about maybe discussing high
Hmm. Yeah.
cholesterol numbers in
You know,
relation.
actually, I find cholesterol very easy to address because I don't check it.
Okay.
To me, cholesterol is like a wisp of smoke off of a fire. Fire
Hmm.
is insulin resistance, and you have a wisp of smoke
Hmm.
called cholesterol, which I don't think has much effect. It's just a wisp of smoke. Then you have the
Hmm.
high blood pressure, diabetes, which have their own effects and problems that need to be treated.
Hmm.
When I look at the statin data, now I want to make a distinction. For primary prevention, people who have not had a heart attack or stroke do not have angina, they just have a high cholesterol. My reading of the data is that in that group, which is most of them, you lower heart attack death about 2% with a statin. Now, let me put that in perspective. If somebody takes one small square of chocolate a day, it's associated with about a 45% lower risk of heart attack death. If somebody owns a cat, it's associated with a 30% lower risk of heart attack death. If somebody takes a statin, 2%. Now, they will torture the data because what they do is they take people who have had heart attacks and strokes and angina who need to be on statins. It's life-saving for that group.
Hmm.
And they put just enough of those in these studies that they get statistical significance and can torture the data. So I am not a fan of statins unless somebody's had a heart attack, stroke, or actual angina.
Hmm.
If they are on a statin, I don't have a preference one to the other, but I will make sure they're on coenzyme Q10.
Hmm.
Again, I'll use one with Gamazorb. It's a chewable 100 milligrams at probably equivalent to about 700 milligrams of CoQ10. Europharma has many of these. Euromedica and the practitioner line.
Hmm.
Wonderful, wonderful product. I don't take money from any of these companies. So I get to be very picky and I get to be very mouthy about what I like and what I don't like. So they will have a CoQ10 that is high absorption. They have several. Get the chewable
Hmm.
CoQ10, the 100 milligrams. Give that the statin to prevent the toxicity. But the LPA is it's kind of like a new okay, what's trendy? What new test can I find? Oh, well, I'll read how many whiskers on my cat. That's going to tell no, use common sense. I don't chase cholesterols
Hmm.
or the lipid fractions.
So you're more concerned with metabolic health, right?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
that's what I'm
what's
hearing.
causing the problem?
Yeah. Yeah. Root cause.
I want to put out the fire. I don't want to chase wispy smoke.
Yeah. All right. So, we talked about a number of different things, metabolic health, diabetes. You've provided, I think, some really great guidelines, protocol for helping practitioners address that with their patients. We've talked a little bit about, the impact it can have on heart health, cardiometabolic health. Is there anything else that you want to share? Any pearls of wisdom in this area?
I'm going to come back to what we started with. When your people you treat come in to you and they've been given a diagnosis, we tend in medicine to make it a diagnosis cast in stone that only the doctor can treat. You have no power. You will listen to me. There's nothing you can do. I can't take this. I mean, really, we disempower people. You're letting them know that diabetes is optional. You can make it go away on your own. This is something that was rare. It's a disease of modern lifestyle. It doesn't mean you have to give up what you enjoy. It means learning. It's like learning the price of things, what's expensive, what's not, and that you can make it go away. I will guide you on how to do that. It's a very different message than you are medicalized forever.
Right. You're doomed.
Yes,
Empowering the patient to make the changes that will eliminate a condition that is very dangerous, but it's
yes,
in their power. to do it. And they got there by the choices that they made, probably not realizing the impact of those choices,
No
but
brainer.
educating them about changes they can make, they can take control of, and have an impact and improve their health. That's the recipe right there.
Right there.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Dr. Teitelbaum, thank you again so much for coming on the show, and very informative. I will include all the links so folks can get in touch with you for more information about some of the things you talked about, both on this topic, but the others that you touched on briefly. So thank you again, and we'll have to chat about the next topic because I always enjoy having you on the show. Thanks so much.
Aloha, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the One Medicine podcast. I hope you found today's episode interesting and came away with a few insights you can apply to your practice. If you're looking for the show notes, they can be found in the link below. If you want to go deeper on this topic or anything else, please visit todayspractitioner.com and consider registering for our weekly newsletter as well. Thanks again, and I hope you'll join us next time.